For joining us for this media availability. We have today speaking Minister of Forests Ravi Parmar. We'll also hear from Dr. Sarah Henderson. She's the Scientific Director of Environmental Health Services with the BC Centre for Disease Control. Of course, we do have technical experts on Zoom to answer any media questions after we hear remarks. Those include Cliff Chapman with the BC Wildfire Service, David Campbell, the head of the River Forecast Centre, Connie Chapman, Executive Director for the Water Management Branch with the Ministry of Water, Lands and Resource Stewardship. And last but not least, Kevin Dunbar is here. He's the Executive Director with Emergency Management and Climate Readiness. With that, I'll hand it over to Minister of Forests, Ravi Parmar.
Great, thanks very much, and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ravi Parmar, and I have the pleasure of serving as BC's Minister of Forests and Minister responsible for the BC Wildfire Service. I want to thank my colleagues for taking the time for all of us to be able to join you in providing an update. I want to begin by acknowledging that I'm joining you from the Press Gallery Theatre here in Victoria on the territory of the Lekwungen-speaking peoples, known today as the Songhees and Esquimalt First Nations. Today we'll be sharing an update on the current wildfire situation here in British Columbia, including a heat and smoke forecast following a busy wildfire week. Before we get into that, I am aware of an unfolding situation involving a BC Wildfire Service helicopter and a forced landing late this morning. The helicopter was carrying an initial attack crew while responding to a wildfire located south of Pemberton. I'm relieved to let you know that all the occupants are accounted for and there are no critical injuries. First responder agencies are on site or en route, and they will provide more updates as they come. Please, for anyone in the Pemberton area, respect their work and prospect that area, and please avoid that area. I'm grateful for all the crews for their work, and in particular to the first responders supporting our wildland firefighters. Over the past week, parts of British Columbia have seen record-breaking high temperatures with little to no rain around most of the province, coupled with over 6,000 lightning strikes that resulted in a sudden increase in the number of wildfires across BC. Let me be clear, the risk of new wildfire starts and week-over-week growth remains a serious issue for much of the province, and the immediate weather forecasts will continue to create challenging wildfire conditions. Although we are not expecting a significant lightning event in the next couple of days, lightning is expected to return to the coast later this week. And based on the forecast, which Cliff Chapman from BC Wildfire Service can speak to in a bit, the heat is expected to continue through the weekend, with temperatures reaching to 10 degrees above normal in some areas. With no significant rain forecasts, I cannot stress enough how vigilant people need to be at this time. As of this afternoon, there are 155 active wildfires burning around British Columbia, with 12 starts in the last 24 hours. Of these 155 wildfires, 58 are considered out of control, meaning growth is expected for those wildfires. Dr. Sarah Henderson from the BC CDC can speak to the health risk, but we should expect to see wildfire smoke come south in the days ahead. Weather forecasters are saying that the smoke is going to be a major factor in the next 24 to 72 hours. There are already reports of smoke hitting communities. We do expect more smoke to arrive in the central and southern interior tonight or tomorrow and reach Abbotsford and the coast by Friday. Smoke is coming from both Yukon and the Northwest Territories from wildfires in British Columbia and wildfires in British Columbia, and could certainly come up from the south as well. The BC Wildfire Service has been responding vigorously to wildfires throughout the province, putting out over 100 fires in the past week. A huge thank you to all of our crews who are on the ground, in the air, 24/7 for their efforts in making this happen. In addition to our hard-working ground and air crews, heavy equipment and structure protection personnel and other types of equipment are working hard and on standby across the province. I also want to remind the public that the use of drones is a significant hazard to our crews who are fighting fires, and it is a good reminder for me to remind everyone that it is illegal to fly them in fire areas. BC Wildfire Service is getting more reports of unauthorized drone use in wildfire airspace, which puts both our aerial crews and ground crews at risk. This also applies to any non-firefighting aircraft. please keep the airspace clear around wildfires. Although it may feel like summer is winding down, we are still in an active wildfire season. Everybody must do what they can to help prevent new wildfire starts, and it's more important than ever to take the necessary steps to remain prepared. Please stay vigilant, be fire smart, and follow the fire bans in your region. As we transition into fall, many people in British Columbia head back into the country for hunting and fishing trips. I urge everyone to check with local authorities and stay informed of any fire prohibitions. A reminder that open campfires are still prohibited in the coastal, Caribou, and Kamloops fire centres. You can find more information about prohibitions, evacuations, driving conditions, and the current wildfire situation on the BC Wildfire Service website or app. We are expecting more wildfire starts in the coming days. I'm urging everyone to continue to do their part, report wildfires, even if you believe that it may have already been reported. Please do so by going on and visiting the Wildfire app or calling star 5555 from a cell phone. We're working hard to make sure resources are in position and available to keep people and communities safe. I want to thank those of you who are continuing to be diligent and aware of the wildfire situation. I also want to thank all firefighters and emergency personnel who have been working tirelessly for months, keeping people and communities safe each and every day. Keep up the great work. Thanks very much, and I'll now turn it over to Dr. Henderson.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for inviting me to be here. I'm joining you from the traditional and never ceded territory of the Coast Salish people, the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh First Nations, from the BC Centre for Disease Control building. We are in a situation where the summer is following us into the fall. We have an unseasonably hot week ahead. As the minister said, we have been breaking temperature records, and now we are expecting a significant amount of smoke throughout most of the province over at least the next 3 days. Both heat and wildfire smoke are stressors on the body, and simply put, heat makes wildfire smoke worse, and wildfire smoke makes heat worse. So when these two things happen together, we see a bigger impact than when either of them is happening alone. If you are looking for good information on the air quality in your area, I highly recommend aqmap.ca. This provides the fine particulate matter concentrations from all of the government sensors across Canada, as well as the low-cost sensors that people may have outside of their homes. It gives a really clear picture of the air quality situation. You can also look at the smoke forecast and the locations of different fires using that tool. The health effects of wildfire smoke are varied. The most important thing to know is that we have gases and fine particles that are interacting with the lungs and causing irritation and inflammation that can affect the lungs and the entire body. Most people will only have mild symptoms from wildfire smoke, maybe a sore throat, stinging eyes, a bit of a headache. Those things are normal and usually transient. They will go away when the smoke goes away. Some people may have more severe symptoms like difficulty breathing or a tight chest. If you're having severe symptoms from wildfire smoke, please seek medical care. We are learning over time that wildfire smoke also has longer lasting health impacts. So even after the smoke goes away, it leaves a thumbprint or a fingerprint on our bodies that can stay with us for years. Although we have much more to learn about these longer lasting health impacts, it's important to understand that if you take measures to protect yourself from wildfire smoke when it's smoky outside, you'll also be protecting your health in the longer term. When we're talking about the people who are most susceptible to the health effects of wildfire smoke, it is anybody with asthma or COPD or a reactive lung disease that can make it hard for them to breathe. If you have those conditions, Keep your rescue medications with you at all times and have a plan for if you cannot bring an attack under control to seek medical care. Anybody whose health is compromised on a day-to-day basis is likely to feel the impacts of the smoke than anybody who's quite healthy on a day-to-day basis. And then we're also concerned about people who are pregnant and young children. Young children are more susceptible to smoke for lots of different reasons. First of all, they're still growing. They breathe faster than adults do, and they're more active than adults are, especially outside. We also need to be concerned about people who are working in the smoke and who are marginally housed. When it comes to protecting yourself from smoke, there's several things you can do. Close doors and windows and run an indoor air cleaner if you can do that without making it too hot inside your home. Indoor air cleaners can be purchased in many locations, but you can also build a simple one using a box fan and an air filter, and you can find instructions for doing this at the BCCDC website and many other locations online. Take it easy when you're outdoors. Now is the time to go for a walk instead of a hard run. Wear a well-fitted N95 or similar respirator to help cut the particles in that smoke. Drink plenty of water to help with that systemic inflammation that the smoke is going to cause. And most importantly, listen to your body. Don't try to tough it out. If your body's telling you that you're struggling with the smoke, take measures to reduce your exposure. Finally, I want to comment on the fact that these conditions are happening the week that kids are going back to school, and that's already a stressful time for kids and families. We need to be considering how to manage school environments and daycare environments when we have these types of events that last into the fall. Please look to guidance from the BCCDC and your local health authorities. There's lots out there about managing smoke exposures in school facilities and daycares. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We'll now move on to media questions. A reminder to all media on the line, please press *1 to enter the queue for your chance to ask a question and a follow-up. Of course, as mentioned at the top of this availability, we do have a number of technical experts on hand to answer your questions. Of course, Minister and Dr. Henderson are available for their areas of expertise. We also have Cliff Chapman, Director of Provincial Operations for BC Wildfire, David Campbell, head of the River Forecast Centre, Connie Chapman, Executive Director, Water Management Branch with the Ministry of Water, Lands and Resource Stewardship, and Kevin Dunbar, Executive Director, Provincial Operations with the Ministry of Emergency Management and Climate Readiness. Our first question today comes from Emily Javeski of Vista Radio. Emily, please go ahead.
Thanks for today's update. I'm wondering if some of the experts there could talk a little bit more about the impact of these latest heat waves on the drought and dryness conditions and how that's impacting the length of the fire season.
Great, thanks very much, Emily. Certainly can turn it over to Connie or Dave from Ministry of Water, Land and Resource Stewardship.
Yeah, thanks for the question. When we look at conditions, particularly over the last few weeks, we've seen a bit of a seesaw in terms of the weather patterns. Some relief that we saw, particularly in the mid-August period, did create some improved conditions, particularly in the streams around the province. What we've seen is that transition to hot and dry weather that we've had for the last couple of weeks and really is forecasted into the next week has seen the gradual build up again of some of those dry conditions, lower stream flow, and as a result, we've seen growing or deepening drought levels across the province. We anticipate with the trend that we have right now that we'll continue to see that go forward in the next week. In terms of fires, I'll maybe pass it over to the Wildfire Service for additional comments related to the fire aspects. But certainly when we look at the drought levels, we're seeing those increase because of the dry conditions we're experiencing lately.
Yeah, thanks, David. And I think just quickly from a fire perspective, and I think you nailed it, David, like when we are in this type of heat wave, we have these underlying drought conditions, which we've spoken to, and Ministry of Water, Lands and Natural Resources and Connie have spoken to at previous media availabilities, our fuel is also very receptive to this heat wave. And so what we're seeing, even though we saw a bit of rain in July and August this summer, we're seeing that our fuels are very receptive for this time of year. In particular, September is when we start to see the burning period shrink. Our fuels are less receptive to new starts. They're less receptive to large fire. This September, we're seeing kind of the opposite of that. We're seeing our fuels are very receptive. We're seeing that new starts are happening when lightning strikes and or when there's activities on the land base that can start a fire. So we are in more like August conditions, although we still do have the benefit of shorter days as we enter into September. So that's the one thing that is helping us get on and get after these fires as they pop up.
Emily, do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, I'm wondering, as the wildfire season lengthens, is fatigue among crews becoming a challenging factor, and how that's being mitigated?
Respond briefly and then turn it over to Cliff. Without a doubt, I've had an opportunity to travel much of the province and engage with so many of our wildland firefighters who are working hard each and every day. It's why we've continued to make investments in the wildfire service, making sure that we're making more investments in innovation and technology, new opportunities to explore heavy equipment, strike teams in the interior. But it's also why we've grown the BC Wildfire Service as well. It was a record year in terms of the number of recruits that wanted to be a part of the BC Wildfire Service. But without a doubt, we are in September and we're still talking about very much an active wildfire season. And I just want to take the opportunity to once again recognize and thank all the wildland firefighters for the incredible work that they're doing every single day, 24/7. But I'll certainly turn it over to Cliff for his perspective as well.
Yeah, thank you, Minister, and thank you for the question. I do think, and Minister is correct, yes, fatigue is something that we are constantly monitoring in BC Wildfire Service. But I also want to make a note and thank the BC Wildfire Service and all of our contractors, and because it's not just us. We have aviation industry, we have the contract industry, we have foresters that come and work with us, municipal fire departments. We have lots of supporting folks that come and then help us, and they're also dealing with fatigue. But what often isn't maybe as known is that the folks that work in BC Wildfire Service are as passionate as they come when it comes to doing the work that we do. I can speak from experience. I've been doing this for 24 years. There isn't a day that goes by that we aren't ready and we aren't kind of chomping at the bit to go and do what we want, to go and do what we do out in the field, which is to put out fires. And so we're very fortunate to have the staff in the BC Wildfire Service that are just so passionate about getting out there and trying to suppress these fires, regardless how long the fire season is. And I do want to highlight that through this year, we're actually breaking records in how many other agencies we've supported during a summer in which we have still had a fire season. We had a fairly significant fire season up in the Prince George Fire Center to kick off this fire season in April, May, and June. And then we've had pockets of activity throughout July and August. And all the while, we've also been able to support Eastern Canada. We've been able to support the Yukon. We've been able to support Central Canada with Saskatchewan and Manitoba. We have deployed to more agencies outside of British Columbia than we have before in supporting their fire situation, while also being prepared and ready for our own, which we are, and we stand ready as we have all summer and will continue to through September. And as long as the heat and fire activity stays, we will be ready to suppress the fires that occur.
Next question comes from Keir Junos, CBC. Go ahead, Keir.
Hello, this is a question for Minister Parmar. Is there anything else that he can share about the helicopter crash near Pemberton? If I heard correctly, you said there were no critical injuries, but how many people were on board? How many crew members were on board the helicopter? And if no critical injuries, what are the injuries, if any?
Yeah, certainly. Thanks for the question. As you can appreciate, this is very much an unfolding situation. There's a lot of agencies that are on site supporting those wildland firefighters and supporting the situation on the ground. But I'll certainly turn it over to Cliff if there's been an update in the last little while. But what we do know at this point is that all the occupants are accounted for and there are no critical injuries at this time. But Cliff, over to you for any updates that you may have.
Yeah, nothing significantly more than that, Minister. There was 4 people on board in total, is what I've been told. 3 BC Wildfire Service staff plus the pilot. And what we have been made aware is they were walking, and they are being supported both by the extraction crew as well as BC Ambulance and Extended Health once they get back to the Pemberton base and will be checked over for the nature of their injuries. So that's all we have right now. And we will update the media and other channels when we get more information.
Keir, do you have a follow-up?
Yes, thank you for Cliff. This has to do with the smoke in Metro Vancouver and the Fraser Valley. Maybe a bit of a granular question, but if you could speak to, in each region, which fires are contributing to which smoke in which region. Are you able to provide that information at all? Any insight into where that smoke may be coming from, specific to the region?
Yeah, I mean, I probably could speak to some of the fires. I think the minister did highlight that, some of the smoke is coming from the fires across British Columbia. There are also fires burning in the Yukon and Northwest Territories, and some of the smoke is coming from there as well. In BC right now, we don't have, if we think back to fire seasons like 2023 or 2017, we often would have a fire that was 100,000 hectares or 150,000 hectares. We don't have a fire like that in BC right now. Many of our fires are staying in that 10 to 50 hectare range. We're having very good success with our staff and our aviation assets on those fires. And we do have a couple of fires, one within the Kamloops Fire Center and continued activity in the Caribou Fire Center that have gone a little bit larger than that, kind of crossing over into the 1,000 hectare mark. So, some of the smoke that's blowing south is coming from those fires, in particular out in the western part of the Caribou Fire Center, out in the Chilcotin fire zone, just where we've seen a little bit more significant fire behavior, sort of that rank 4-5 fire behavior. And that's certainly creating some smoke that's been pushing south. But specifics to which fire is bringing which smoke, I mean, once the smoke gets up into the atmosphere, it sort of just all combines and becomes sort of like the way the clouds move through the sky. And so right now we're seeing with the wind that's pushing it into the south. We're hoping that by the end of the weekend and heading into the early parts of next week, that with the weather pattern setting up, we'll start to see that smoke dissipate out to the east and to the north. So hopefully it's only going to be, like as the minister said in opening, 24 to 72 hours, but we'll keep monitoring and continue to provide updates.
Our next question comes from Jennifer Palma, Global News. Go ahead, Jennifer.
Okay. Well, hello there. Can you hear me?
Go ahead,
Hello?
Jennifer. Yeah, you're good to go.
Okay,
Please
sorry.
go ahead.
Thank you. So sorry about that. Hi there, everyone. Thanks for taking my question. I'm just wondering, in regards to the crash, thankfully everyone was seemingly all right. Do you know, did the fire at all, any smoke, etc., play into that situation? Is that known at this point?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Jennifer. I think it's a bit premature for us at this stage to really provide any comments. It was a forced landing, wasn't a crash. At the outset, I think it's an important opportunity for us to talk about the conditions that our wildland firefighters are working in. These are hard-working crews, keeping people and communities safe. When we have more information to share around the conditions of those wildland firefighters, and of course what led to that forced landing, will certainly provide that.
Do you have a follow-up,
Thank you very much.
Jennifer?
And yes, I'm just wondering as well, do we usually see, when we get these kinds of smoke haze conditions, I'm just transitioning to the question about this now, it's usually out in the valley areas that it gets really, really bad. By the water, doesn't get this bad normally, or is this something that we might be seeing a change in?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'll turn it over to Dr. Henderson.
Because of the normal wind patterns in BC, it is more unusual for us to see smoke kind of in the Lower Mainland and around Vancouver, but it's certainly not unprecedented. We've had events like this in 2015. We had a significant smoke event in Vancouver in 2020. In September, we had a lot of smoke come up from the US that affected the city. So it really just depends on where the fires are and what those winds are doing. Looking at the maps this morning, it looks like a lot of that smoke was coming down sort of the sea to sky corridor. It got entrained into that valley. We had fairly stagnant weather conditions in the morning, so it was just kind of pooling up in that valley and got pushed down into the city. But over the next few days here, we're likely to see a bit of a shift in the winds, and it might get smokier out in the valley. That's one of the really important things to understand about wildfire smoke. It is highly dynamic in both space and time.
Thank you very much. The next question comes from Justine Hunter, Globe and Mail. Go ahead, Justine.
Hi, and I think my colleagues have covered most of everything I wanted. I just was, again, looking for any specifics to describe how, like, what's changed in recent days to drive the smoke into Metro Vancouver. So it does sound to me like you've covered that, but if there's anything else that you can point to that we may have missed already, that would be great.
Maybe I'll turn it over to Dr. Henderson to see if she has anything else to add, but we've certainly seen an increase in the number of wildfires occurring in the Caribou Fire Center, without a doubt. That's an area that I've certainly been keeping an eye on throughout the wildfire season that has had, I would say, and Cliff could certainly speak to it, a quieter season comparative to previous years. They are definitely picking up. I know that there's at least one, possibly two incident management teams en route supporting the wildfires there, supporting our wildland firefighters and communities. But I think has been touched upon in the previous answers. As you noted, Justine, wildfires here in British Columbia, wildfires down south, and certainly those in Yukon and Northwest Territories are all leading to smoke and the fact that British Columbians are seeing smoke in their communities and will be over the course of the next number of days, as Dr. Henderson has noted.
Anything to add, Dr. Henderson?
Add that, as I said previously, we have seen these conditions in previous years, and this is what is happening now across Canada, is that we see smoke in most summers somewhere in the country. We see smoke in most summers somewhere in BC. And the more prepared we are for these episodes when they occur, the better we can protect the health of the whole population when they occur.
Thank you. Justine, do you have a follow-up?
Well, I'm just wondering if we've actually seen today any indication of an uptick in hospitalizations or call-outs because of this. I mean, the Metro Vancouver, you've got over 3 million people that are impacted by this high level of smoke. So just wondering if you've got any update, indication of pressure on the healthcare system.
Yeah, over to you, Dr. Henderson.
Yes, so far we see no evidence of undue pressure on the healthcare system because of this event. And we do track these things quite carefully when these events are occurring. So overall, I feel confident that because we've managed these types of events before, the population has some of the skills necessary to cope with the smoke, and we will keep watching for sure.
Our next question comes from Chuck Chang, Canadian Press. Chuck, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. I'm not sure if this question is for the minister or for any of the experts in attendance, but the Environment Canada model forecast appears to show the smoke getting significantly worse in the next few days, as the minister mentioned about this persisting for the next couple of days at the very least. Any indication of how bad it might get? The air quality warning map on Metro Vancouver currently shows Vancouver as a 9, which is a very high risk already. There's only 2 classes above it. What can people expect the next couple of days if the Environment Canada modeling is true and we might see more smoke in the region?
Yeah, I'll turn it over to Dr. Henderson to provide an answer. But, really, I think it's an opportunity for us in providing this update to British Columbians is please be prepared for wildfire smoke in your communities. As Dr. Henderson has eloquently put out, it's a good opportunity for those who may be going for a walk or a run in the morning to be mindful of that, making sure that you're looking after your loved ones, in particular those that may be immunocompromised. But I'll certainly turn it over to Dr. Henderson to provide some more thoughts.
Yeah, it certainly looks from those forecasts that it might get quite smoky, similar to the type of smoke that we saw in both the 2017, 2018 wildfire seasons, a little bit less so in the 2023 wildfire seasons. So again, it happens in British Columbia, and it's happening and more frequently because of the changing climate and other factors. So be prepared is the best advice I can give you. We're likely going to see those air quality and health index readings up into the 10 plus zone across lots of different parts of the province. Be aware that these exposures can affect your health. Be aware of what your exposures are and think about your ways to protect yourself from those exposures. What I encourage people to do is always ask the question, where am I breathing right now, and what are my opportunities to reduce my exposure? We cannot stop breathing because it's smoky outside, so we need to think about all of those little ways that we can reduce how much smoke we're breathing in. We don't have control over this, but we do have control over our own behavior as an actions.
Do you have a follow-up, Chuck?
Yes, thank you. This is for Dr. Henderson. For a lot of residents in Metro Vancouver, I know a lot of people do have air conditioning, but a lot of people also don't, and don't have access to indoor spaces with the qualifying or HEPA air filters. I was wondering if there's at any point the air quality concerns outside might impact those inside without proper air conditioning or filtering, and are there any advice that you can give to them in terms of keeping themselves safe during this period? Thank you.
Sure, this is a complex question. As I started out with, we have two exposures at the same time, and they have interactive effects with each other. So the best place you can be is in a cooler, cleaner indoor environment, somewhere that has both air conditioning and air filtration, so it's not very smoky in there. If you do not have access to air conditioning, closing the doors and windows might lead to overheating in your home. For most people, that's a bigger risk factor than inhaling the smoke. So we encourage people to prioritize staying cool and then prioritize reducing their smoke exposure. But if you're able to run an air cleaner in your home, again, it doesn't need to be a fancy HEPA one from the store. It can be a furnace fan taped to a box or a furnace filter taped to a box fan. That works pretty well. That's going to help clean out the smoke that you have inside. I will say that it's quite smoky inside the BCCDC building today, and different buildings have, different ability to keep the smoke out. Some work pretty well and some work less well. So you have to think about how smoky it is in the building that you're in, and also think about whether or not you can be measuring the air quality in that building. There's lots of low-cost, inexpensive air quality monitors on the market right now that would help you to understand how smoky it is inside.
And for our last question today, we will go to Ollie Herrera, Check News. Ollie, please go ahead.
Hey, thanks for taking my question. Earlier, it was mentioned how this year's fire season is a lot less severe than last year's. I was actually just quickly checking, even in 2024, 2023, we had way more lightning strikes. I know the focus is smoky skies, but with the new fire starts, are there any immediate concerns that any of those fires could reach population centers or cities at the moment?
Yeah, thanks, Ollie. I'll turn it over to Cliff to answer that question.
Yeah, thanks for the question. There are certainly, I mean, probably depends on your definition of population center, but if there's one thing that we have become very aware of in BC Wildfire Service over the last decade is that very few of our fires don't have the potential to impact somebody's home, livelihood, or in many cases when we're more in the rural parts of BC, industrial and resource values that are very important to those same communities and population centers. So right now with our fires that are out in the Chilcotin, there are communities out there that are prepping and being prepared because of the fire activity, whether that's Tatla Lake or Anaheim Lake. And as the new starts occur, if we do see any lightning in the next few days or we see new starts, we are seeing that many of the starts are happening at Valley Bottom, which is also where communities generally are. So I would suggest that everywhere in BC needs to be prepared, as we often say on these media briefings, like have a go bag. I know it feels strange. My kids also just went back to school yesterday. Feels strange to be doing a fire update first, second week of September, but this is kind of what we were anticipating might happen. Environment Canada has said that they believe our forecast is for a longer summer, which generally means a longer fire season. So I would suggest for anyone in BC that you have your go bag ready, that you have the Wildfire app downloaded, and that you are paying attention to your conditions, because they can change very rapidly. And we have seen this week that the fire behavior that we are experiencing is really showing up in a dangerous way, and fires do have the ability to make some fairly large runs right now with the conditions that we face in BC. So until we get measurable rain, these are the conditions that we will be in until we can see measurable rain across BC.
Ollie, do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, thank you for that. And quickly, Ravi mentioned earlier that smoke and lightning is expected to reach the coast. Is that Sunshine Coast, or are we talking Vancouver Island coast? And if it's not Vancouver Island coast at the moment, is there any expectation that lightning and smoky skies could reach Vancouver Island in the next few days?
Yeah, Cliff, I'm not sure if you have the answer to that, or Dr. Henderson.
I can provide what I know from our forecast, and then Dr. Henderson may want to add. Right now, our forecast is that today is going to be the hottest day of this week. We're going to see our temperatures really peak today, depending where you live in BC. I'm not going to guess the temperature, but somewhere between 30 and 40 degrees likely. And then we'll start to see it come down just a little bit. And the other thing that smoke will do is smoke will sort of change the weather pattern ever so slightly. And so right now we are forecasting Friday to be the day that we could potentially see lightning come into BC. When we say the coast, we mean the entire coast of BC, north to south. And so we're watching that very closely. We have initial attack resources ready and prepared within that coastline of BC from north to south. In anticipation of lightning, but the smoke may actually not allow those lightning cells to form. So we're kind of waiting to see. Obviously, we have resources ready, but we're waiting to see what impact the smoke will have on the potential for thunderstorm development. So that's a little bit complex in the weather world, but that's what we're waiting to see. We are anticipating the potential for lightning on Friday, and then really no other highlights of potential lightning for the next couple days after that, but then we'll have to see what next week brings.
Like Cliff, I do not possess a crystal ball that is going to tell us exactly what is going to happen. The best tools that we have are our weather forecasts and our smoke forecasts. The smoke forecast is showing that we're going to see a pretty concentrated amount of smoke through the central interior part of the province, and less smoke along the coast, but still smoke at the coast. But if we have new lightning strikes and new fires, the forecast that was generated this morning can't account for those new fires. So the best advice I can give you is to be prepared for smoke in the days ahead, no matter where you live in the province.
Thank you very much, everyone. That concludes today's availability.
Thanks, everyone.